These companies are getting bigger. And the argument is they've got to be huge in this age of digital to have heft. But it seems like the kind of thing that 5, 10 years from now we can all see unwinding, where everybody's justifying why they need to be smaller again. When are we going to know whether this was strategically the right move? What do they have to accomplish?
I mean, reality is I think it's going to take probably at least 2 to 3 years to see how the industry shakes out, especially in the content game and online streaming. And it could get messy. You have a lot of big players stepping into the space at the same time. It's kind of a roll of the dice to see who's going to come out. It's going to, for everything to go seamless and everyone to be a winner, that's probably a little bit unrealistic. And we've seen Netflix, what they've done over years is spend, spend, spend. I mean, I think Disney and the likes of some of the other players are going to find out to compete with Netflix. It's going to ding their profitability.
Joanna, for the content creators, how do you expect this to change the game? I mean, Disney is huge in theaters, but also really huge in TV with this acquisition.
Well, it's incredibly interesting, right? Because what you've got is you've now got Disney and Fox, which is a colossus. Now it stands astride the Hollywood landscape. You've got Netflix and you've got Apple. And they each bring something different to what is really now a content arms race. So you have Disney with phenomenal content sort of swagger now, and they're taking a lot of their content back from Netflix, but they have 0 subscribers. So this year they're going to launch Disney Plus, but they have at the moment 0 subscribers, some with ESPN, which they've spun off into a streaming service, but they're weaning themselves off cable. You have Netflix with 140 million subscribers, but a business model that needs to get them to 200 million. And then you have Apple, who comes in with 1 billion devices, so fantastic distribution system, but so far they've only spent 1 billion on content, which is a drop in the ocean when it comes to what everybody else is spending. So to give you context, that's less than ABC is spending, ABC the network, it's less than CBS or NBC is spending. And Netflix will probably spend 12 billion on original content this year. So Apple, it's got 200 billion sitting somewhere offshore in cash, right? It could really step up. But we're not actually seeing their commitment yet. They've got 5 shows that we know they've finished and are ready to go, but you could binge that in an afternoon. So they're going to have to do some binge spending if they're going to keep parallel, I think, or really enter the race properly against Disney and against Netflix.
Interesting. Variety has a story about a memo that Iger wrote today where he writes, "I wish I could tell you," this is to employees, "that the hardest part is behind us, that closing the deal was the finish line rather than just the next milestone." He seems to be acknowledging the hard part is coming.
The race is just beginning.
Is that why the stock has been stuck?
I think so. And we all know that from an execution point of view, Iger and Disney, they've really struggled with their cable business. I mean, sports viewership's been on the decline. Their content on the main networks has also been struggling as well, as the shift to streaming just continues to accelerate. And kind of just to also shift back to Apple, I agree 100%. I mean, they're really going to have a hard time to differentiate in an increasingly crowded landscape.
And I think it's a question I keep coming back to. What's going to be more important for all these different services? Is it quantity, the amount of content they have, or the quality of the content they have?
It's a really good question. And the great news is that for consumers, this is fantastic. Remember when we were having that discussion when the internet really caught fire and we were all saying, oh, there's never going to be anything worth watching, it's all full of nonsense. Actually, this is great for consumers. I do think it's going to come down to branding. And what Netflix has going for it is that Netflix is cool with Gen Z and millennials. They like it. It doesn't feel part of the regular entertainment landscape. And it remains to be seen if Gen Z and millennials actually want to download something called Disney Plus. Does that remind them of their childhood? Do they like the idea of something more edgy, which is definitely what Netflix provides? And how do they feel about Apple, this sort of omnipotent force in our life now, getting involved in the content game? But for content creators, it's fantastic because it means there's much more competition, huge numbers flying around, right? Ryan Murphy, Shonda Rhimes going to Netflix for unheard of contracts. So this is very good for content creators in the short term.
How long before we see, Joel, subscription aggregation? I mean, I expect it has to be that somebody's going to have the most loyal user base. They're going to have the lowest churn, the greatest number of subscribers, and they're going to say, okay, all you little guys who are struggling, maybe losing subscribers, I'll bundle you in. But you got to make concessions. You got to give me the power.
I mean, the obvious player is probably Amazon, just given it they have tentacles everywhere across the economy. Globally, they're expanding as well. So Amazon kind of jumps out as a player.
Apple?
Potentially, Apple just scares me. I mean, it's good. Obviously, the event's coming up. They may bundle their content, product with music to some degree. But others would argue, as far as the music game goes, they've dropped the ball. Spotify's hands down the best service out there when it comes to music. I think a lot of people agree. So I just think Apple's a little bit too late, too little, too late.
Before I let you both go, I just want to shift gears really quickly because it's not getting as much attention, but there is an expectation that we're going to get a bundled news service rolled out of Apple next week as well. Joanna, could this usher in a new era for print media?
For print media? Well, Apple has Texture, which is the big magazine app, which is a fantastic way to really absorb what's going on in magazines. I think a lot of the news, getting into the news business requires a different kind of mindset than we've yet seen from either Netflix or Apple or Amazon. And we know they don't actually want to get into that business because it puts them in political conflict in markets that they're trying to expand in. So I'm very curious to see what they do. Apple are fantastic at making announcements. Let's see what the quality and the quantity of the content actually is.